On this week's Gridiron Report, we have the Lions' full 2025 schedule finally being released. Michigan State basketball finalizes their roster, and I may or may not be the best golf better of all time. So let's get into it.
In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim, grit and grind every inch, every rim, from the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the Gridiron Report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire, Gridiron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud, champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report, where the stories are proud.
Welcome to the Gridiron Report, your Lions First All Detroit Sports podcast presented by Mic Drop Media. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, and we finally can get back to our bread and butter, talking about football, talking about the Detroit Lions. The NFL has finally released the full schedules, so let's just start there with what we're best at. Detroit Lions schedule. We talked last week about how they were doing it in a weird way, kind of piecemealing the schedule release. We got a few international games. We got a few games that we know we weren't going to be a part of. But the full schedule didn't get released until last Wednesday. So we unfortunately didn't quite make the cutoff for last week's episode. So this week, we're going to break down the entire schedule, go kind of game by game, talk about our thoughts on the record. We have a few voicemails to tie into the Lions here. So we'll play those. And let's just jump right in. So real quick, we're going to go through the schedule. So I'm going to go through these real quick, and then we can kind of jump one by one. We have Green Bay, Chicago, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, KC, Tampa Bay, a bye week, Minnesota, Washington, Philadelphia, the Giants, Green Bay again, Dallas, the Rams, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and then we finish the season at Chicago. So let's just go kind of game by game. We don't have to break them down too much, but let's go game by game, give a quick record overall as well. Starting at Green Bay, what are you thinking with this one?
Yeah, and just before we jump in, just want to say how good it is to be talking football again with you, Tyler. I mean, we could not be more back. I know it's only May 20th as we're recording this, but it's great to talk some shop. So yeah,
it's funny you say that because I looked up today. I was like, we're talking football. We're getting ready for the game for the show. I looked up when Hard Knocks starts. And it's unfortunately not until August. Like, we're still very far away from Hard Knocks and like the start of the preseason, but I'm right there with you. Like, it feels like we're back.
Hard Knocks is so funny too, because like you're so amped up for it, and you watch like one episode, maybe an episode.
I couldn't care less about it when it was going on, but I love the start of it.
Like, yeah, it's like yeah, it's so funny every single year how that works. But yeah, all right, week 1 at Green Bay. I have this one as a win. I think it is going to be a dogfight. Green Bay, pretty sure we swept them last year. They're going to be out for some blood. And then, yeah, it's always tough to win in that environment. Although, yeah, I think that the Lions have definitely had some success in Green Bay in recent years. So, yeah, for me, that's a dub.
It's brutal starting the season at Green Bay. I know obviously at the end we'll go through an overall record and know exactly what we feel. Like the schedule itself is difficult, but starting at Green Bay is brutal. I like starting at Green Bay rather than playing Green Bay later in the season because at least it'll be a little bit warmer. Yeah, I'm going with a win here. I think we start the season 1-0 against Green Bay. Right after that, Chicago Bears come to town September the 14th. What do you think about that one?
Another dub. Yeah, I mean, I'm just so not sold on Caleb Williams. I know he's probably a good young talent, but every time I see him play, he just airmails balls, and a lot of times he might not have time in the pocket. But neither here nor there. Yeah, that's another dub.
To get a Ben Johnson rematch game so quick in the season will be nice. We don't have to go to Ben Johnson first. He gets to come to Detroit, and we can, fans will probably boo the shit out of him. I don't think he handled that very gracefully. We talked about in previous episodes, so I'm sure it'll be rocking there. I think for sure, I agree. 2-0, starting the season 2-0. Right after that game, the next week, we then go to Baltimore. Part of me is saying like maybe we start hot, we use the momentum, we start the season 3-0, but like I feel like every time we play Baltimore, they just exploit all of our weaknesses. They run all over us. We end up losing. What, like 2 years ago that we lost like 38-0 or something like that. So I think we come away with this one with a loss.
Yep. It's funny. We're 3 for 3 agreeing. I also have this as a loss. I just feel like even though Goff does play very well on in primetime, I think since 2020 he's one of the best quarterbacks, win-loss record in primetime. But at Baltimore, this one's just going to be, I think, too much. Lamar is going to be awesome. This is going to be an L.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to disagree really, at least for the next two, because then right after we go to Baltimore, we're back at Ford Field where the Cleveland Browns come to town. I mean, this is just if we get beat up a little bit at Baltimore, it's nice that we then can go up against a team like the Browns the week after, maybe get a little healthy, a little get right game, because I think there's very little chance we lose game 4, meaning that we're looking at like a 3-1 start to the season.
Yeah, this is a win. I mean, Cleveland's an absolute joke. Yeah, one thing about Week 4, could we possibly be seeing Shador Sanders first start of his career? Like, I don't know if they're going to be maybe going with Flacco first couple weeks, Dylan Gabriel, but I think eventually they're going to want to start Shador. The fans are going to want to. They're going to get pressure from the media. Maybe Week 4 against the Lions. And sorry, Shador, you're taking the big L.
That's going to be actually brutal. Just not talking Lions, talking Browns. Like, it's brutal for Dylan Gabriel because if he does get the start, he's got, like you said, fans are going to want Shador. If Shador does get the start, something probably went terribly wrong. Who knows how? Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I hope it's Shador. That'd be awesome to get. Although I feel like that would be a perfect time for Shador to come out and like make everyone regret not taking him or something like that. But I digress. I think we've come away with a win there. So we're starting the season 3-1. We then go to Cincinnati to play Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I think we win this game too.
I have a dub here. This is going to be a tough one. I think the Bengals have a lot to prove coming off last season where, yeah, they dealt with some injuries, but honestly, they just underperformed. Their defense was awful. I mean, I don't know if they're going to take some huge leap forward with the defense, but as long as they're not just absolutely terrible on that side of the ball, they're going to win some games. I think they're a playoff team. If Burrow stays healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's going to be a tough one, but I do have this as a dub.
They're interesting because they, like you said, it's a big if Joe Burrow can stay healthy. If he stays healthy, their offense is good enough to carry them some games. Their defense can't be any worse than it was last year, and I think they fired their DC. Who knows what's going to end up happening with Trey Hendrickson? So like it could be there's a pretty big question mark there. He's being tied to Detroit again. Now that they're saying talks have stalled between them. So a lot of what ifs and big question marks as it relates to this one. But I think we're starting what we said. So this will be 4-1. To go then to Kansas City on October the 12th. What do you think? Another primetime game, 8:20.
Another primetime game. This is Sunday Night Football at Arrowhead. I do have this as a loss. I think a bit of a revenge game from the first game of the season, 2023, I believe it was, or 2023. Yeah. When the Lions rolled in there with a dub. I think this is going to be a dogfight. Mahomes, I think Kansas City has a lot to prove after getting smoked in the Super Bowl. I have this as a loss.
Okay, so we diverge now because I think we go into Arrowhead and I think we win again. I think just because Kansas City is one of those teams that like during the regular season, you kind of see them stumble a little bit and it's kind of like Alabama during the regular season. Like people start to bet against them and then they get to the playoffs, at least the playoffs, not the Super Bowl, but the playoffs, and they kick the shit out of everyone. And you're like, oh wait, they're pretty good. They were just kind of just figuring things out during the regular season. So I think that we can play to our advantage. And we come away with the win at Kansas City. So now you got to keep track of your record. I got to keep track of mine because we're going separate ways now. So I have us now at 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think you would have us at 5-1 there, right? I'm 4-2.
So then after playing at Arrowhead, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come to Ford Field, back-to-back primetime games. This is Monday night game, 7 p.m. Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield coming to Ford Field again. I feel like we've struggled with them for the past few years. They've been surprisingly a really great team with Baker. They obviously lost their offensive coordinator, who I think became a head coach. So it'll be interesting to see how they can kind of react. Both teams, actually, us and them, will be going with new offensive coordinators. This game scares me a little bit. I think, especially if my prediction comes true and we beat Kansas City at Arrowhead, I think this could be a trap game.
Okay, I see what you're doing there. So you have it as a loss, right?
I do. I have it as a loss, yeah.
So because I have us losing to Kansas City, this is a big bounce back game for me. Week 7, Tampa Bay at home, Monday night. I mean, Ford Field is going to be just insanely loud, and yeah, I have this as a win.
So it sounds like we're on the same page. Either big win before and then let down the week after, or just being beat by the Chiefs and then a big game to follow that up for you.
Especially going into a bye week the next week too. I think they're gonna lay it all on the line. I mean, I do think they beat Tampa Bay there.
Yeah, so the next week, like you just alluded to, week 8 is our bye week. Finally, we have a bye week that actually can kind of service us. Last year our bye week was like week 4 or something crazy.
Real early.
And especially, and that wouldn't have helped us. We had so many injuries down the line. Like a later bye week, I don't think would have done really much, maybe a little bit. but finally we can actually use that. And I would even like it a little bit later, but we'll take what we can get. So we have our bye week, week 8. So just sitting here, I have us with 2 losses and you have us with 2 losses as well, right?
Yeah, I think we both are at 5-2.
Okay.
Going into the bye.
Going into the bye, and then coming out of the bye, we immediately bring the Minnesota Vikings to Ford Field, Sunday 1 p.m. game. Minnesota is a big kind of question mark team because we don't know what it's going to be like with J.J. McCarthy. We kind of expected them to be terrible last year, and they were really great with Sam Darnold. I'm confident that we can probably put this down as a W, though.
This is a W. Yeah, they're, like you said, definitely a lot of unknowns with Minnesota. And they still do have a really good roster. They have one of, if not the best wide receivers in the league in Justin Jefferson. So, I mean, they're always going to be a factor in divisional games. I think it's kind of like, you throw the record books out when you're playing divisional games, or at least to an extent. But yeah, in this case, I mean, this is a big dub. The Lions are leaving Ford Field with a dub here.
Immediately after that, we have a rematch with the Washington Commanders. Obviously, is the team that kind of kicked our ass up and down the field to kick us out of the playoffs a little bit premature. Yeah. So this is a big one. This is one that a lot of people are going to be circling on their calendar as kind of the revenge game. You were just talking about the revenge game with the Chiefs. This is going to be the Lions' revenge game at Washington.
Yeah, and true revenge game too, because this Lions team has the most bitter taste in their mouth from how they performed when they played Washington in the playoffs last year. I can guarantee you that. So yeah, as big of a revenge game as you could probably have following up going into the following seasons. Yeah, for me, this is a big dub. This is a statement win for the Lions. They're gonna walk into, I think it's still FedEx Field. I think they're maybe in the process of building a new one, but they still have that absolute dumpster fire of a field. Lions are going to walk in, huge dub.
I want it to be a dub. That game hurt so badly, but I think Washington got better. They added Deebo Samuel this offseason. Who knows what he's actually going to be like this upcoming season. I think we just have a hard time containing QBs like Jaden Daniels, and I think we're going to come away with a loss with this one.
Wow. Yeah. I think that healthy Aiden Hutchinson's going to go a long way in this game. But yeah, I'm with you. Road games are always tough. And
we follow that up.
Washington is a good team.
Yeah, we follow that up, staying on the road, going from Washington to Philadelphia, and just a brutal back-to-back week there, November 9th to November 16th. So at Philadelphia, it's a primetime game, 8:20 Sunday night. I think we're going 0-2 in this little mini road trip, and I hate to say that, but I think we're losing to Washington or to Philadelphia as well.
Yeah, I do have this as a loss. Week 11, you're getting later in the season, weather's turning, Sunday night, primetime game, and I just think the Eagles are a damn good team. Obviously, they're a damn good team. They won the Super Bowl in pretty historic fashion last year. So I do have this game circled. I know we were talking about this before we started recording. Do we have a game of the year? Do we have the Lions' biggest game of the year? For me, this is the Lions' biggest game of the year, but I do have this circled as an L. I mean, it's just going to be such an uphill battle against the Eagles.
Like you said, we talked about whether we circling the biggest game of the year. I think this is going to be the most difficult game of the year. But I think the week before this, that you mentioned a big win against Washington. I think that week's going to be the game of the year. I think if we come back and we can, really put it to Washington and show that you caught us on an off week last year in the playoffs. A healthy Aiden, we're in different games here. I think that's going to be the game of the season that I'm circling. I think you come out and really make a statement there. Unfortunately, I do think we lose that game. But I agree with you. I think Philly will be the toughest game. Maybe not the game of the season, but the toughest game for us this upcoming season.
Interesting that both of our circled games of the year, we both have them circled as losses. So I don't know. Maybe we're just realistic. Maybe we're pessimistic. I don't know what you want to call it, but I think those are going to be 2 extremely hard games.
And after we go through the last few of these games, we'll go through kind of overall thoughts and a few voicemail callers. And a few of them were talking about some doomsday schedule or records. So we'll see. Moving on, though. We then, go to New York to play the G-Men. That's a W, right? I don't even know who's going to be throwing for them, or I guess it'll be their rookies. They got a bunch of rookies on the line. That's a W for me.
Yeah, I think that game's at home, right? Ford Field, week 12, Giants. Yeah, huge dub. The Giants they're a joke. Nothing else I need to say there. That's a win.
Immediately after that, we get back into the division, and we have Green Bay coming to Ford Field. I think this is Thanksgiving, right? Yeah, this is going to be the Thanksgiving, the 27th game. So Green Bay on Thanksgiving. I hate playing Green Bay, and I hate playing just divisional teams on Thanksgiving. I feel like we always struggle. That last year we barely beat the Bears because Eberflus was a literal child with his game management. The year before that, we got destroyed by Green Bay on Thanksgiving, so I hate this. And I'm kind of 50-50, but if we were a little pessimistic earlier, I'm going to be a little optimistic here and say we sweep Green Bay again. We win on Thanksgiving.
Yep, I am with you. I completely agree. Yeah, Thanksgiving, it's a crapshoot, and I get why. It's a short week, short rest. Guys probably have other things on their mind. Maybe they have family in town. Whatever it's going on, it seems like the Lions just always play like shit on Thanksgiving, even when they have good teams, which for the past 2 or 3 years they've been an outstanding team, and they still seemingly play like shit on Thanksgiving. This is going to be a really hard one, and I hate that it's Green Bay too. Yeah, you mentioned it. The Packers kicked our ass on Thanksgiving 2 years ago, but, again, another revenge game from there. And I do think that the Lions come away with a dub there on Thanksgiving.
So let's go through the next few. So then we have Dallas, Los Angeles, and Pittsburgh. I think all three of these are going to be W's. I think Dallas is always up in the air. You never really know what you're going to expect there, but there's another primetime game on Amazon Prime, 8 p.m. on Thursday night. I think we get a dub there. Los Angeles Rams. They're a little bit aging. I think we can handle them pretty confidently. And then the Pittsburgh, we don't even know who's really going to be throwing for Pittsburgh, so I think we get 3 W's in a row there.
Yeah, I am almost entirely with you. I do think, that Thursday night game, Dallas at home, so basically 7 days rest. You're going Thursday to Thursday, which seems like the NFL does quite often. Of course, Dallas also has 7 days rest. They're also playing on Thanksgiving. But, I think that's going to be a big game. I think it's probably a statement game for the Cowboys, just after getting their ass absolutely kicked by the Lions in Jerry World last year. But I do think this is going to be a Lions dub. It just seems like, we've kind of had their number. I know they've split the last 2 seasons, but I think that's a dub. I will say, though, traveling west to Los Angeles to play the Rams the next week 15, I have this as a loss, and I'll tell you why. I just think that Stafford has been so close to beating the Lions the last 2 years. Obviously, I'm referring to the playoff game 2 years ago, and then last year, I believe it was the first game of the season, which was a extremely tight game, went into overtime. Lions won on just a really good, basically rushing attack in overtime with David Montgomery to beat them. But these teams have played extremely close twice. Lions have come away with the dub both times. I just think that it's kind of like you're almost due for a loss there against the Rams. And I think that Stafford, assuming that everyone's healthy, Stafford plays. Obviously, Puka, he's kind of made of glass. If he's playing, I think that's going to be a tough one. I have that as a loss. But then, of course, Week 16, Pittsburgh at home. That's a big dub. They're gonna basically sleepwalk through that dub.
That's a damn good job convincing me that we're losing to the Rams. So I'm going to stick with my original, because I already put it out in the internet world. So I'm going to stick with that. But damn it, you convinced me pretty well there that we're losing that one. So we're in agreement kind of there. And then we wrap up the season, the last 2 games at Minnesota Vikings on Christmas Day. And then we wrap up the season at Chicago to finish up the year. And I want to get your thoughts on Christmas Day in a second. But I think we sweep both these as well.
Okay, like it. Week 18, I do have a dub at Chicago, although we might be hopefully resting starters at that point. But I do have a loss Week 17. I just think, it's a divisional game at Minnesota. The Lions won at Minnesota last year, but it was extremely tight. I think we won on a game-winning kick by Jake Bates. Christmas, I just think it's tough. Similarly to what I talked about for Thanksgiving, but I think that guys traveling away from family on Christmas, it might take a toll on some of the guys, especially the guys with families or young ones. And I just think that might be a tough one. I do have that as an L. Now that I think about it, I don't know how the Lions are going to lose that game against Minnesota, which I don't think is going to be good, but I have it as an L in my show notes. I'm going to stick with it. I think that is going to be a loss.
Yeah, you have to. So that puts me personally 13-4, which is a lot better than I would have thought going into a record or a schedule like this. And like I said, you probably convinced me a little bit on 1 or 2 there. So 13-4, give or take a win or 2. What your final record end up being?
I have us at 12-5, but I still think that's good enough to win the NFC North. I think the Lions win it again.
Yeah. Okay. So we do have, I know that was really fast. We didn't want to spend too much time on each of these games and dive in. Obviously, when the season does come around, we will be breaking down the upcoming game, the matchups that we're looking forward to, the previous week's game. If you weren't a listener for last season, we kind of break it down game by game. A lot more Lions stuff come the regular season. So we want to just real quick do that. We do have a listener voicemail about the overall thoughts on the team. So let's go ahead and play that. And then we'll just give our overall thoughts on the overall record, the season, stuff like that.
Hey, this is Alex. First time, long time. I got a quick question for you because I've been seeing a bunch of stuff now that the NFL schedules, Lions, everything's been released for next year. Now, I've seen a lot of things saying Lions are going to go like 9-8. And I know we have a tough schedule, but I would love to hear your thoughts, with the draft already have happened. Now we're looking on the next year. I find it hard to believe we're going to go 9-8. So let me know your thoughts. Look forward to listening. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Alec, for the call. Appreciate the listening and calling in for your first time. Yeah, so like I mentioned with the schedule, I know a lot of people just immediately saw how difficult of a schedule we had. We're tied for the second toughest schedule in the NFL this upcoming year. And so immediately off the rip, it's kind of natural to say like we're gonna regress a little bit. I think 9-8 and going that low was a little bit kind of doomsday. We just went through all the games and like I can see how we would lose maybe 2 or 3 more games than I just mentioned, but like at worst, that puts us at 10 wins. Even if we lose a lot of those 50-50 games. So going like that bad, 9-8, even worse than that, I think it's not very realistic. I think that's being a little bit pessimistic for some of the talking heads and stuff. But I think, like I said, I was kind of surprised when we went through this and I had 13 wins. I originally had us at around the 10 to 11 kind of threshold with wins. The one thing that is also to note, though, a lot of people were talking about how it might be difficult for the Lions to take the North again, just based on how the other teams fared this offseason. The Bears, got better. The Vikings, we don't really know what what to have in them. And then the Green Bay is always Green Bay. They're just always good. The Bears are actually tied with us for the second hardest schedule. We both have an opponent record winning percentage, I should say, of 571. So like the Bears, while they did get better on paper, they seem to win every offseason. They also have an extremely difficult schedule this upcoming year. So we don't really have to worry about them, in my opinion, when it comes to the North. Like I said, with the Vikings, you don't really know what you have in JJ McCarthy. They still have good guys around him, but like JJ is not good enough, in my opinion, to really have me concerned about the North. So overall schedule, I think maybe the 9-8 is definitely a low shot, but the North, the Green Bay, the Packers are really the only team I'm worried about.
Yeah, I think 9-8. I mean, barring any like crazy injury, and I'm mostly looking at like Jared Goff because I think there's just no other injuries that they could even sustain that would have them go 9-8
Right.
and really like regress that much from the previous season. I mean, we talk about regression. Yeah, they're probably due for a little bit, but hey, last year they went 15-2, and I'll say that again: the Detroit Lions went 15-2 last season. So yeah, I mean, I think they are due for a little regression, but 12 or 13 wins. I think it's not off the table, even looking at how hard this schedule is. I mean, obviously we just went through it. So yeah, I mean they're gonna drop some games. They play some really hard teams, and all of their hard games for the most part are on the road. So yeah, definitely don't expect another 15-2 season. But at the same time, I think 12 wins is certainly on the table still, and yeah, so is the NFC North.
10 wins will get you to the playoffs. So like as long as we can get to that like 10 win threshold, we should be good. You mentioned the road games being difficult. 7 of the 9 road games we have this upcoming year are against playoff teams from last year. So that's in general just brutal. The road teams we play had a winning percentage last year of 667. So I mean it's a real difficult road schedule. But like we said, there'd be a major regression to drop below 10. I just don't see that. But I want to get your thoughts on, we mentioned during the schedule, and you and I talked about this off air a tiny bit, Christmas Day game. I came out and said, I don't like that. I'll do Thanksgiving. I like the Lions on Thanksgiving. It's a tradition. Find out where we're going to be, whose house we're going to, sit down and watch the game, eat during halftime, whatever. I love that. I don't like Christmas Lions football just because, and I'll give you my thoughts on it, because I need to be in front of the TV. I need to watch the game. Unfortunately, I think I do a really good job. It's like not letting the team and the game affect my day. But on a day like Thanksgiving or Christmas, when especially Christmas will be so late in the season, there could technically be a lot on the line there. I don't want it to ruin my Christmas.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree respectfully. Well, first off, you compared it to Thanksgiving. Obviously, Thanksgiving is a tradition. This isn't gonna be an every year thing for the Lions on Christmas. It's just I see them maybe playing on Christmas once every 5-6 years tops, because the NFL is gonna be cycling through teams. So I'm pretty pumped for it. I know that. On Thanksgiving, I'm pretty much, glued to my team. It's what you do. You watch football
Yeah.
and, eat some good food. That's not entirely different from what I do on Christmas. I mean, I'm chilling with family and probably not as much of an emphasis on food, but pretty damn close. And yeah, we're always watching something. Usually it's NBA, but now with the NFL being king and wanting to take over Christmas, which I'm totally fine with, and I'm pumped that the Lions have it this year. So yeah, I have it. Ironically, I have this circled as a loss for the Lions, but I could easily see them winning. It's Minnesota. The Lions are the better team, and I'm pretty pumped to watch them on Christmas Day.
Let me be clear. I like football on Christmas. I'm with you. I'm usually in NBA on Christmas. NBA, for years, the NBA has really owned Christmas, and it's been fun. Like I said, like you said, just kind of have it on in the background, as you're eating and relaxing with your family and stuff. If that's gonna be football, sure, great. I love football. I'll like have it on the background, but I don't want it to be the Lions because that means I had to put that much more effort in and actually watching and paying attention. And I'd much rather kind of just like have it on in the background, like catch a few plays here and there, maybe check my fantasy scores, stuff like that. So I'm okay with the football, but I'm not thrilled about the Lions. And I know a lot of the players also are not thrilled about playing on Christmas. Thanksgiving, like you said, a tradition. You play in Detroit, you kind of sign up for that. I know a lot of them, when that did get released, a lot of them were on Twitter voicing their disconcern with that. So I just wanted to get your opinion. I know, like I said, we talked about it real briefly before the pod, and I knew you're on that side. I knew I was on this side. So
You mentioned fantasy too. Hopefully we're all lucky enough to be there, all of our listeners. But week 17 out of 18 is always
that's a good point.
the fantasy Super
Yeah.
Bowl. So yeah, that could absolutely make or break if you have some Lions on your team, which hopefully you do because they're one of the most prolific offenses in the entire NFL. So you probably have a lot of Lions players on your team. Hopefully you do. But yeah, that's definitely pivotal. So that just adds another element.
That could be really good or it could be really bad. That's the schedule. We do have a few real quick kind of player season stats I wanted to go over with you. We'll do some over-under stuff. So passing yards, touchdowns, receiving yards, stuff like that. DraftKings went out, and obviously they put out a whole bunch for a lot of the prominent players. You don't have everything for every player on every team, but we do have the main ones for the Detroit Lions. So I'll just go over these. Again, these are from DraftKings. I got them as of yesterday. I can't imagine they've changed. But so Goff, passing yards, they have him at 3,900 passing yards and 28 and a half passing touchdowns. Are you taking that over and or under? And just for record, last year Goff threw for 4,600 passing yards and 37 touchdowns. So this would be quite a regression from last year.
Yeah, and I think that he's hit I'm actually surprised that over under is 3,900. I'm just looking at his stats right now, and he has hit 3,900 or more in it looks like at least like 4 out of the last 6 seasons or something like that. So yeah, I'm definitely hitting the over on his yards. Touchdowns, this would definitely be a bit of a regression for him too. I'm going over on both. Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at his stats from last year. I'm looking at stats for him 2023 and even 2022, where he threw for 4,400 yards, 29 touchdowns. So that even would have got the job done too. So yeah, that's surprising to me. I don't know if Vegas is factoring in a new offensive coordinator and maybe a little regression because of that, but I'm smashing the over for both.
I'm absolutely smashing the over on the passing yards, but the touchdowns, I agree with you. I think maybe this is, like you said, they're taking into consideration John Morton and a new OC and just kind of Jahmyr Gibbs emerging as like the number one back, not so much a 1A, 1B, but like a 1 and a 2, a very close 2 in Montgomery, but like Gibbs kind of just emerging and being more focal in that offense. So I think maybe they're taking that into consideration, but I'm absolutely smashing the passing yard. So that was interesting. Speaking of Gibbs, for Jahmyr Gibbs, we have an over-under of 1,100 rushing yards and 10.5 rushing touchdowns. Last year, he had 1,400 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns. So again, and I mean, we had a historic year last year. Like all of our numbers are going to be very inflated. Again, Jahmyr Gibbs, they're calling him to have a little regression.
Yeah, this one is interesting too because last season we did have David Montgomery who went down with an injury and he missed quite a few games. And in those games, Gibbs really emerged as the bell cow, and he did extremely well, which obviously we know he can do. But now you have a season where both guys are coming into this season healthy. Obviously, you don't know what's going to happen during the course of the season, but assuming that they are going to continue to split carries, yeah, I do see Gibbs numbers potentially going down a bit, but. I don't know, man. I'm going to smash the over again on both yards and rushing touchdowns. I mean, he's so prolific. He's one of the best running backs in the league. I see him scoring and see him scoring at will. Now, I will say that, I think he is going to catch a few touchdowns as well. So maybe yeah, I don't know how that's going to, factor in. Obviously that 10.5 is just rushing yards, but I'm smashing the over on both.
Yeah, like I said, I could see, you made a great point that David Montgomery went down for a few games last year, but also, like I said, for Jared Goff, I could definitely see Jahmyr Gibbs. He's emerged. He's a star in this league. They're going to focus around him. If there's any sort of misstep in the offensive coordinator handoff, they're going to lean on Jahmyr Gibbs to basically just run the shit out of the ball. So the next one, Amon-Ra St. Brown, over under 1,100 receiving yards. So they have the same line for Jahmyr Gibbs rushing yards as is Amon-Ra receiving yards, and 8.5 receiving touchdowns. Last year, he had 1,200 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. So, pretty much the same sort of digression there.
Yeah, this is an absolute smash on the over for both. Yeah, and I know I have to be wrong on some of these because there's no way that the Lions are just going to be just over Kings again. But yeah, I'm just looking. So St. Brown actually had a down year last year from a receiving yard standpoint. And that could be factored into a couple different things, but probably the emergence of Jameson Williams is going to just, take some yards away from Amon-Ra. But I do think that, 1,100, that is well within his grasp. And then 8.5 receiving touchdowns. That seems insanely low for a guy who caught 12 last year. So 10 the year before. Yeah, I'm smashing the over on both.
So that's the last of our over-under. Now, obviously, you said over on every single one of these. I'll let the record show. Last year, I did exactly that. I parlayed the over on basically everyone on this list. I parlayed the over of Montgomery yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns. Lions winning the North, and Dan Campbell winning Coach of the Year. I parlayed it all. It was like,
my God.
It was like $5 to win like $16,000.
Why did you put Coach of the Year in there?
The only one that didn't hit was Coach of the Year. He technically probably should have won that. So I could see that happening. Like I said, I did it all last year. I'm probably going to do the exact same thing again because all these numbers really don't make sense to me. But if you have all these guys scoring these touchdowns and getting the yards and stuff, somebody's going to get squeezed out, right? Does that mean Jameson Williams drops on his stuff? Does Sam Laporta kind of remain in the background as he kind of did a little bit last year? It's interesting. So does Montgomery take a step back or really become that number 2 rather than that 1B? We'll have to see.
Just a wild move to put a Coach of the Year future in with player props. I love that.
I called it my Detroit Madness parlay. The last one we have, it's not an over-under, but I don't know. Did you see this? Did you read this? Did you see this? The DraftKings has Aiden Hutchinson as your favorite for not only comeback player of the year, but defensive player of the year. He's at plus 650. So not only comeback player of the year, but defensive player of the year. So you have to assume if you were to win defensive player of the year, he's definitely winning comeback player of the year. I haven't even seen those odds, but I thought it was really interesting that they seem to not care whatsoever about his rehab or anything.
Yeah. He's coming off a broken leg, obviously gruesome injury, but it's something where, that bone heals and then you are completely fine. And so it's not like a ligament injury. So I can see why, DraftKings or Vegas probably isn't super concerned with an injury like that. And they do have him as a favorite for defensive player of the year. I love it. He would have ran away with this award last year had he not broken his leg. He would have set records for pressures in a season. His sack total was looking insane as well. We probably would have added another interception or two because that seems like that's what he does. He can just do anything and everything on the field. So I like him for defensive player of the year as well, especially in an NFL where you have guys like Myles Garrett and TJ Watt who are a bit older. They're not as young as they used to be. So I can definitely see this going to a young guy like Hutch.
And then you add in maybe like a healthy Marcus Davenport on the other side, or you bring back Zadarius Smith. He could get a lot of help there. And I agree with you. You know what? Throw that in there too. Throw that into the parlay of everyone's overs.
We're going to be so rich.
I know. Okay, so we do have one more Lions listener voicemail touching on the schedule a little bit, but then also briefly talking about the Tigers. So let's use that right now, and then let's jump into some Tiger talk.
Hey guys, it's Max. First time, short time. Just because you guys just started the pod. First off, I just want to say what an amazing night last night with the Javy walk-off. I think we were all kind of hoping he would do something special, and he definitely delivered. The catcher flipping the mask off right off the bat was freaking awesome. Just wanted to get your thoughts on new NFL schedule release. It seems like Detroit got a tough break. I know the top teams get the hardest schedule, but damn, like look at our schedule for the away games. I mean, we got, I think all of them are playoff teams besides one, which the Bengals came down to. I think it was the Broncos had to lose and they were playing the Chiefs, but the Chiefs said all their players were playing all playoff teams, including both Super Bowl opponents. Just going to be a crazy year. I'm getting kind of nervous. I know our division's really, really tough, so just wanted to hear your thoughts on the schedule. Thanks.
Hey, Max, thanks for the call. Appreciate the long time, short time. Appreciate that. So we already broke down a bunch of obviously the Lions schedule there. It's an interesting point because you're right. Like the best teams get the hardest schedules, which makes sense, but it is also brutal because year by year, your team can change so much. Look at the Bengals a few years ago, who I went to the Super Bowl and then were so bad for a few years. And so it's so hard to replicate what you did the year before, yet we're going to have a harder schedule. So it's really interesting. We already broke down, a whole bunch of the schedules. Now, I'm nervous. I was more nervous until we went through the schedule one by one. And I guess I had us winning 13 games. So I appreciate the call on the Lions there. But as it relates to the Tigers and Javy Baez, we've talked ad nauseum about Javy Baez and how well he's been playing. He obviously has really becoming in clutch the last few weeks. The one thing about Javy, I'll say, and then I'll let you kind of jump into some Tiger stuff, is like Javy has always been clutch. Even when he was really struggling for the Tigers the last 3 years, for some reason, he was one of our best clutch batters, even when he was struggling. Like he just performs in situations like that. He loves the attention. He loves being able to perform like that. And so now that he's, his average is back up, he's hitting home runs more. So he's already matched his home runs from last year. He has 6 on the year. He had 6 all of last year. He had 9 all the year before. So like he's already almost matched the year before that too. It's awesome to see. As a 1.7 WAR, which has to be leading our team. And you're right with the Max. The picture of when Javy hit that walk-off home run, the catcher just immediately throwing his mask on the ground and walking towards the dugout was just beautiful.
Yeah, Max, thanks for the voicemail, man. And yeah, that catcher's eye roll, I can close my eyes, I can still see it. It's a chef's kiss. It was beautiful. Yeah, Javy's been incredible, and he's been a big reason why the Tigers are where they are right now. And yeah, I just want to talk on Javy just a little bit more. Tyler, I know we're rolling through his stats a little bit, but yeah, he's batting .291, so average, it was hovering around 300, 310. It's down a little bit, but he's, that power has really come alive lately. 8 doubles, yeah, like you said, Tyler, 6 home runs, and I think those 6 home runs have all come in the last 4 weeks, so 4 or 5 weeks. So he's been awesome. He's been really coming around, and yeah, that walk off for his second home run of the night. I mean, it was electric, man, and I think it kind of broke the Red Sox a little bit, which I always love to see. But yeah, Tigers. Just a quick update on the Tigers. I know we talk about them every week. Baseball is obviously a grind. It's a long season, so we're not going to sit here and say, yeah, the Tigers are just going to cruise through this season. I mean, there's going to be a lot of ebbs and flows, ups and downs. But as we speak right now, the best team in baseball, the Detroit Tigers, 31-17 on the season. Best record in baseball, yeah, and the best record in the American League by 3 whole games. So yeah, they are cruising right now. They have a 4.5 game lead on the red hot Minnesota Twins in the AL Central. The Twins, I think, had ripped off 12 straight wins. They were certainly in the doghouse. They are clear out of it now. I think they're just, if you're comparing them to someone like the Cleveland Guardians, I think that the Twins are clearly the better team. They're playing better right now, even though those teams have similar records. But yeah, I think this is probably going to be a 2-horse race. But I do love seeing a 4.5 game lead in the Central, as we sit right now, mid to end of May. And yeah, got Tariq Skubal on the bump tonight. That's always good. I'm not going to say it's an automatic win, but especially coming off a loss last night against the Cardinals, having Skubal back on the bump is definitely nice. And then, the Tigs are heading back home on Thursday for a very big 4-game series against Cleveland. So I'm hoping I'm not going to, eat my words by kind of dogging Cleveland a little bit there, saying Minnesota's better. But yeah, this is going to be it's a very pivotal 4-game series Thursday to Sunday this week. So I'm pretty pumped for it.
Minnesota, you mentioned Minnesota's winning streak. I saw something on Twitter. It was like Minnesota just completed the 12th win in a row to now be down by 3.5 games in the division. That just shows how hot the Tigers are, and as hot as the
Yep.
Twins are. They still have some work to do. So yeah, I think we're talking about going down. Obviously, it's Memorial Day this weekend. We're talking about going down to one of these games against Cleveland. The weather's not supposed to be super great, but hopefully we can get down there for, like you said, a pretty important series. Just beating the Red Sox and sweeping the Red Sox was so important, just because it was Bregman, and he actually played pretty well. He hit a home run against us, so I wanted to sweep him so badly. So I'm happy we were able to do that. And then you mentioned the game last night that we lost 11-0 or something. That was probably one of the first. There's probably only been like 2 or 3 games this entire season in which we just looked terrible and we looked like we don't want to be there. And that's baseball. You mentioned it being a grueling, long season.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. So I also saw Casey Mize was put on the IL last week. He is now going to start back his rehab assignment soon. So it proved not to be that bad of a hamstring injury. Parker Meadows and Matt Vierling are both working their way back. We should have them back in the next 3 weeks or so. And I think actually Reese Olson was just put on the IL. So kind of going through the injuries a little bit, but we should be getting some reinforcements back here shortly. And we'll keep this thing rolling, hopefully.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's keep moving. We do have some college hoop stuff. We have the NBA draft lottery. We already touched on that a few weeks ago. But as of now, as we mentioned, the Detroit Pistons don't have a first-round draft pick. They have a second-round pick. But as it relates to college, so many people can kind of still stay in the draft, can drop out of the draft. I think it's June 15th is the cutoff date there. So we're not going to touch any Michigan basketball stuff until we do get to that date, that drop dead date. Because it does sound like Yaxel Lendenborough, who is going to be the transfer to Michigan, easily would become likely their best player. It sounds like he might still stay in the draft, but he definitely still could drop out. So their roster is kind of still up in the air. But what we do have is a Michigan State Spartan transfer that likely rounds out their roster. So the Spartans picked up a transfer from Divine Ugochukwu. He is a 6'3" freshman point guard from Miami. He was a former 3-star. So really interesting. We kind of checking off the boxes. The Spartans needed more 3-point shooting, and we really needed a backup point guard. We got at least one of those in Divine here. He's easily going to slide right in at that backup point guard spot. Last year for Miami, he finished the season with 5.3 points, 1.9 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and 48.3 from the field. The thing about that, though, is that the 48.3 is primarily all twos, only about 20 minutes per game. But he only shot 0.2 to 1.2 threes per game, so a very low volume. And on those ones, he was only connecting at 17%. And even worse, only 63% from the free throw line. A lot of times free throw percentage and 3-point percentage can kind of be tied together. If you have really good at one or really bad at the other, you can kind of assume that it's, some sort of a cold streak you're going through because the other one is doing really well. Not a good free throw shooter and not a good 3-point shooter, which was really interesting because Jeremy Fears himself is proven to be kind of a spotty 3-point shooter. He can hit them, but he doesn't like to a lot. He doesn't have that many 3-pointers per game per volume. So kind of interesting. He does fill that backup point guard spot, but definitely doesn't add to or doesn't help us in the field that we needed to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is one where we've actually been rumored to get this guy for probably the past couple weeks. So I did have I had multiple conversations with my dad about this guy. Divine, yeah, the good thing is he is a freshman, so still a pretty young player. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his stats. 17% from 3 is insanely bad. I mean, I feel like I could almost put up those numbers. For the record, I couldn't. But yeah, it's still, at any rate, it's just not good looking at him on paper. But I do trust Izzo in this coaching staff for a couple different reasons. I for one, obviously I trust their player development, but really their player evaluation and talent evaluation as well. I think they've certainly picked some winners over the years. So I mean, they obviously see something in this kid. It's not like they're just throwing darts at the wall and seeing, what might stick. So I do think that they can probably increase that 3-point percentage. And yeah, he is just going to be a backup point guard, so you're not expecting him to do a ton. But yeah, just looking on paper, I'm not exactly stoked to land this guy when, there's quite a few stellar transfer, guards that have already chosen, probably for a lot more money than what we could offer. But yeah, I'm not super pumped about this kid.
The few good things, he does have good size, 6'3". Like you said, he is still a freshman, so he's very moldable there. He's a really good defender. He had 1.1 stocks per game last season as a freshman, so that's really good. Shows really good instinct. Again, really good length, really good job getting in the lane, getting steals and blocks there. So definitely will help on the defensive side. I guess it just depends on whether you can get that 17% up or if you can kind of insulate him with shooters. So with that being said, we're looking at likely a starting lineup of something along the lines of Jeremy Fears, Trey Fort, Cohen Carr, Jackson Kohler, and Carson Cooper. Likely, that's kind of the rumored to be the starting five, with your backups of Divine at the 1, Kurt Tang at the 2, Caleb Glenn / Cam Ward at the 3, Cohen Carr likely moving to the 4 as a backup 4, and then Kohler as a backup 5, and Jesse McCulloch at the backup 5. I personally don't think there's enough shooting in that starting lineup of Fears, Fort, Cohen, Kohler, and Cooper. I would honestly rather us kind of shift that around a little bit, move Cohen Carr to the 4, move Jackson Kohler to the 5, put Carson Cooper as the backup 5, and then move Caleb Glenn into the starting lineup. He shot, 36% we said when he transferred here. He's got good size, another consistent 3-point shooter, one of the best ones we'll have on roster. So I think he's got to be inserted into that starting lineup to shoot threes with Fort.
Yeah, I don't think there's any world where Caleb Glenn is not in the starting lineup. I mean, maybe not on day one, but I think he will be inserted very early on. Just because, like you said, yeah, that first starting lineup that you mentioned, there's no shooting there, and I can just see like an 8-minute scoring drought with a lineup like that. So I definitely think you need Caleb Glenn in that starting lineup.
If you don't put Caleb Glenn in the lineup, Jackson Kohler is likely your second best 3-point shooter in that lineup. And while he's proven to hit them at a higher rate than others his size, that is scary if you're relying on him to hit threes at a consistent rate.
Yeah, and I think that he's going to have another offseason. That this is Jackson Kohler, and I think he is going to be a very good 3-point shooter. We saw it down the stretch last year. I would love to see him take more shots. I mean, the team as a whole last year just didn't take a whole lot of threes. So, yeah, would love to see Kohler take more shots, but I also would absolutely love to see Caleb Glenn in that starting lineup.
Yep. So, again, as we kind of get more information on Michigan, whether Yaxel Landenborough will be staying in the NBA draft, coming back to Michigan, we'll kind of update you guys on that and what we think their starting lineup is going to be. But let's wrap up with our last two things. So, golf. Real quick, we don't have very much to talk about here, but I might be the best bettor of all time. I picked Scotty to win the Quail Hollow, and what do you know? Scotty won the Quail Hollow.
Yeah, I mean, you might be a genius. I mean, talk about a sleeper pick, Scotty. No one saw that come. No, I'm not giving you shit because I mean, I picked one of the favorites for the Masters. So yes, fantastic pick. I mean, Scotty he ran away with that tournament. It was actually close in that last round, and then yeah, Scotty really turned it on to win his third major, first non-Masters major as well. Some people were calling him the Masters merchant, could only win at Augusta, and he's proven that wrong. He's also won a lot of other tournaments, but just talking about majors there, to get one, the PGA, and now he's probably going to be one of the favorites to win both the U.S. Open and probably the Open Championship. So yeah, I mean, I see Scotty winning and winning a lot in his career, and yeah, hats off to you, Ty. What a pick!
What a pick! I mean, I just reached in on that one real quick before we jump into our last kind of listener voicemail. There, did you see this stuff about Rory being a potential cheater in his club and stuff? You see any of that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and admittedly, up until the story broke, I really had no knowledge of like the PGA checking drivers. I didn't know that was a process, anything that they did. I have looked into it just a little bit since, and it seems like the PGA probably only checks maybe 10 to 15% of the field every tournament. So it's not like they're going out and checking every driver every single time. And from what I hear, basically, as you hit your driver and it has more and more wear, that face is going to get a little bit thinner and thinner every time that you hit the ball. And it comes to a point where, if it gets thin enough, you're actually at an advantage because it's kind of like a springboard. That ball is just like, rocketing off the face if it's a bit thinner. And then if it gets too thin, of course, you have to get a new one. It's not, within the specs of the PGA. So it sounds like that's what happened with Rory this weekend, which then leads you to say, well, if that driver, if he wasn't able to use it this weekend, he did use it for the Masters just a couple of weeks ago. Was it the same driver? Yes, probably. Was his driver in or out of spec for the Masters? I think that's kind of up to interpretation. He wasn't checked. Like I said, they only check, a certain amount of the field every week. So yeah, it's a fact of the matter. I don't think that it's given him some huge advantage, but also golf can be a game of inches. So I don't know.
Especially when it goes to the playoffs. But I have no idea. You're the golf guy here. I'm on record saying I don't really watch that much golf. Do you think anything is going to come of this?
No, absolutely nothing. And I mean, I say this because golf's own protocol right now is not to check the entire field every time. So Rory's driver just wasn't, during the Masters. So there really is no, proof of body saying that, okay, yeah, his driver was, illegal for this, round at Coelho. That means that it was also illegal for the Masters. There's just really no way of knowing because the data isn't there because he wasn't checked for the Masters. So I think this is all, a pretty big nothing burger, and nothing's going to come of it.
Gotcha. So likely cheated, won a championship off of it. Nothing's going to happen. Shout out the Michigan Wolverines. All right, so let's finish up with, we have one more listener voicemail. We have not listened to it, but it has to do with hockey. So let's give that a listen. And we'll touch real quick on the Red Wings and then wrap up with Grit of the Week.
Yeah, hi. Javy Baez here. Calling for Kyle. I know he's played little hockey like this day, right? So Toronto's going to lose to Florida tomorrow night. So it's going to be Florida versus Hurricanes, and then on the West it's going to be. I'm looking at it right now. I'm watching the game. It's third period, right? I think Dallas is going to win this game. Cheers. We'll talk soon.
Oh man, it's Mr. Zebo Patron. A lot to unpack there. First of all, love that you think that I played hockey back in the day. I don't know if it's because of the sick flow I've got going on. Fun fact, I actually didn't play organized hockey, but do have a passion for the sport for sure. Yeah, man, sounds like you called Florida to win. So yeah, hats off there. I don't know what was going on the rest of the voicemail, but I think technically you called Dallas winning too, or you said something. So those are two wins for you, Zebo. But yeah. Just looking at the cup, we are down to the semifinals now. I'll just give my prediction real quick. I know, Zebo, you didn't really ask any questions there, but if you did ask for my predictions, I will give it to you now for the Stanley Cup semis and finals. But I do have the Oilers beating the Dallas Stars out of the West. I think it's this game. This series is going to go 7. These are two awesome teams, hot teams, two of the best teams in the league. But I do have the X factor being Connor McDavid, who has never gotten to a Stanley Cup Finals. He's going to do it. And then out of the East, I was so wowed with what the Carolina Hurricanes were able to do and really just shit on the Washington Capitals. I mean, that series was never even close. Love how they play. They play with a lot of speed. They throw a lot of pucks on net. They score a lot of goals, and I think that's really going to help them. It's going to be. I think this series is also going 7. This is why I love the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think both these series are going to go 7. And it's no slight to the Panthers. I think the Panthers are a great team. Obviously, they're the defending Stanley Cup champs, but I think that they are going to run out of gas a little bit just against this Canes team that's really fast. They're really young. Yeah, Oilers out of the West, Canes out of the East, and yeah, I mean, I will give my prediction for the finals. I know this is going to change over the course of a couple weeks, but yeah, I'm going Oilers. I'm going Connor McDavid to lift Lord Stanley, get the monkey off his back. I think he's far and away the best player in the NHL, and he's finally going to get it done. He's gonna bring a Stanley Cup back to Canada for the first time in 3 decades. So yeah, those are my predictions. Appreciate you though, Zebo.
Only prediction I'm going to give is that it's not going to be Edmonton because it's extremely funny to me that Canada continues to not be able to win the Stanley Cup. So anyone but Edmonton, in my opinion, for that one. But again, yeah, like Kyle said, thanks, Zebo, for the call and the voicemail. Let's wrap up the show with some Grit of the Week. I will kick us off here. So my Grit of the Week, I had to kind of go back and think if we had any outstanding performances this past week. And while it wasn't really one outstanding kind of jumping out performance, my Grit of the Week is going to go to Dylan Dillinger. Dylan has performed fantastic. over the last, honestly, few weeks in Jake Rogers' absence. So we kind of came in the season not knowing what we had behind the dish, and we knew how good of at least a game caller Jake Rogers was. He's Tarek Scooball's go-to guy. Tarek had a fantastic year last year. Obviously, he loves Jake Rogers. So Raj was our guy. Dylan Dillinger has done nothing but kind of supplant Jake Rogers from the starting catcher position. I tweeted out last night that like in the game we were getting our ass kicked, Dylan was the only one who was actually performing well. And I was thinking like, is there a certain point when Jake should be worried about his job? Just for the numbers real quick, Jake, before he went down, now granted it was only 18 at bats, he was hitting 222, 3 runs, 4 hits, an OPS of 697. So, real small sample size. But Dylan, who's younger, larger behind the dish, is in 130 at-bats, has a WAR of 1.2, a batting average of 292, an OPS of 780, and 4 home runs. So really getting it done. Not very often you get an offensive catcher as well, and he's doing a really good job defensively too. So I just want to give a shout out to Dylan. Like I said, I don't think Jake is going to be supplanted behind the dish, but I think Dylan is definitely making it a conversation.
Yeah, dude, I love that pick. And before I go into mine, and I noticed this a couple times, but my baby cousin, he's not a baby anymore, he's in high school, but he's an avid listener to this show, and he pointed this out too. Are you aware that you mispronounce Dylan Dingler's last name?
Dude, I write it down every time, and every time I say it's Dingler, somehow an extra L just gets thrown in there every time I say it. I don't know how or why. I know it's Dylan Dingler, but when I just get going, it comes out as Dillinger. I don't know.
So, I mean, you have the appropriate amount of L's. You just have that L coming in way too soon in the last name. So, yeah, you're aware of it. You know it. Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah, it's big time.
It's funny that it's still, coming up. But, dude, I love the pick. Yeah, Dillinger, whatever your name is, keep up what you're doing, kid. You are an incredible hitter. And as a catcher, an everyday catcher, it's one of the harder, maybe the hardest jobs in sports as far as the wear and tear on your body. Certainly the hardest, maybe not in sports, but certainly in baseball. Just crouching behind home plate, it's an absolute grind on your body. And that's why you see a lot of catchers that just can't hit for shit. And so yeah, Dylan Dingler, love that pick. He's playing awesome for the Tigers. I think he's solidifying himself as he's got to be our starter. I mean, we love Jake Rogers. His knock, for some parts of last year is that he couldn't hit, and then he did come up clutch in a lot of different games. We love Jake Rogers. He's a great leader, but yeah, I mean, Dylan Dingler, certainly, he's certainly deserving of grid of the week. He's been awesome, man. I'm going to go with an easy pick. I feel like I've been, getting some easy ones in there lately, but this guy is so deserving. We talked about it. Listener Max talked about him, but my grid of the week, it's going to be Javy Baez, and just that electric walk-off alone will earn it for you, and then let alone being your second home run of the night. I mean, I think he batted in 5-6 RBIs that night. I don't even know. I lost count. He was awesome. Single-handedly put the Red Sox to bed. Most of that series. And yeah, he's just been so gritty all season in the face of so much adversity. All the fans, including myself, I was calling him out all the time for being just, this shit player. I don't want him on my team. I don't want him on my opening day roster. And boy, was I wrong. And boy, was everyone else wrong for doubting him. He came back from an injury, got surgery on the hip. He's been incredible. Keep it up, Javy Baez, grid of the week.
Yeah, I mean, he like you said, he single-handedly carried the Boston series. I mean, he single-handedly won that game. He's had incredible defense out there. He's playing at a Gold Glove outfielder level. And I think, at least, when we can get into this down the line, when Parker comes back, our struggles have been at third base. We had Jace Young over there for quite some time. He obviously didn't work out. We went back to Toledo. We've kind of had a rotating door there at third base. You probably can just keep Javy in the lineup and move him to third. He played a little third before our center fielder went down, and so he has like a few games under his belt there. I don't know if he's going to be as good as a third baseman as he is a center fielder, as he is a shortstop, but no one thought he was going to be as good a center fielder as he is. So let's get him over there and keep him in this lineup, because you need him. You need him on a nightly basis. And like you said, that is a sentence that I did not think we would honestly ever be saying, nor would any team ever be saying about him. So shout out to the kid. Shout out to Javy. Shout out to Dylan. Dude, I can't do it.
Dude, Come on, you had to have done that on purpose, right?
Dylan Dingler. That was not. Shout out to both of them.
Just think of like Dinger. He hits dingers, it's Dingler.
Whatever. All right, that's our show. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. You can find Kyle on Twitter at Kyle_Marino. You can find me on Twitter at Dutton_Tyler, and my writing at both Piston Powered and Champaign Athletics. You can follow the podcast itself on Instagram at Gridiron Report, on Twitter at Gridiron Report 1, or you can watch us on YouTube at Gridiron Report as well. Finally, join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the podcast. That number is 313-306-7939. And if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars and leave us a review saying so. Thank you guys for joining us, especially you, Dylan Dingler.
Hey, there we go. Thanks, y'all. Restore the roar.
Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retired, Grit Iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on, blast beats, thunder and loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report, where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat, make your fandom a vow.